All right, let's dive into something that seems super simple, but is actually surprisingly complicated. I'm talking about one of the most basic ideas in all of chemistry, the size of an atom. You'd think that'd be straightforward, right? Well, it's a bit of a puzzle, and today we're going to crack that code.
I mean, just think about it for a second. How do you even begin to measure something you literally cannot see? You can't just whip out a microscopic tape measure. These things are just impossibly tiny. So where do you even start? And then, to make it even harder, there's this problem. An atom isn't a neat little sphere like a marble. Nope. It's more like a fuzzy, blurry cloud of electrons. The farther you get from the center, the cloud just kind of fades away. There's no hard edge. So where do you say it stops? Where's the boundary? Okay. We've got this invisible, fuzzy problem. This is where scientists had to get really creative. They couldn't find a perfect edge, so they had to invent a way to define one. They came up with some really clever methods to get a consistent measurement for these fuzzy clouds. And that brings us to this term, the atomic radius. Now, the official definition talks about the distance to the outermost boundary of the electron cloud, but we just said that boundary is fuzzy, right? So here's the best way to think about it. The atomic radius isn't a perfect absolute measurement. It's more of a working agreement. It's a standardized way we've all agreed to measure so we can compare the size of one fuzzy atom to another. So how do we actually do it? Well, there are two main tools in the toolbox. First up, you've got the covalent radius. This is what you use when two atoms are actually bonded together, sharing electrons. You just find the center of each atom, the nucleus, measure the distance between them, and cut it in half. Easy enough. But what if they aren't bonded? That's where the van der Waals radius comes in. We see how close two atoms can get before their electron clouds start pushing each other away, and then we take half of that distance. It's kind of like measuring an atom's personal space bubble. Okay, so now that we've got a handle on how we measure them, we get to the really cool part. Because it turns out the periodic table is more than just a big chart of elements. It's a treasure map, and it contains a hidden code that lets us predict the size of any atom just by looking at its position. Let's start with trend number 1. This one is super intuitive. It's exactly what you'd expect. As you go down a column on the periodic table, what we call a group, the atoms just get bigger. Plain and simple. And why does this happen? Well, the reason makes perfect sense too. Every time you drop down a new row on the table, you're literally adding a whole new shell of electrons. Think of it just like adding layers to an onion. Each new layer has to go on the outside, farther away from the center. And, well, more layers means a bigger onion, or in this case, a bigger atom. Okay, that was the easy one. Now for trend number 2. What happens when we move across the table from left to right in one of those rows we call a period? Now, think about it. We're still adding stuff, right? More protons, more electrons. So logically, they should get bigger too, shouldn't they? Yeah, no, they actually get smaller. And this is the part that trips everybody up the first time they hear it. It feels totally counterintuitive. We're adding more particles, more protons, more electrons. We're making the atom heavier, but it's shrinking. How does that even work? Well, to solve this mystery, we have to look at this invisible tug-of-war that's happening inside every atom. It all comes down to a constant battle between a push and a pull. On one side of the rope, you've got the pull. This is something called the effective nuclear charge. Basically, all those protons in the nucleus have a positive charge, and they act like a magnet, pulling on the negative electrons. And the more protons you add, the stronger that magnet gets. But on the other side of the rope, you have something that's kind of pushing back. Or maybe a better way to think of it is as a block. It's called electron shielding. See, the electrons that are in the inner layers, the ones closer to the nucleus, they get in the way. They kind of block the outer electrons from feeling the full magnetic pull from the center. Okay, so let's put the pieces together and solve this shrinking atom mystery. As we move from left to right across a period, step 1, we're adding more protons, right? So step 2, that means the magnetic pull from the nucleus gets stronger and stronger. The effective nuclear charge goes up. But here, and this is the absolute key, step 3, the new electrons we're adding are all going into the same outer shell. We're not adding new layers like we did before. This means the number of inner electrons doing the shielding isn't changing. So what's the bottom line? The pull gets stronger, but the shielding stays the same. The pull totally wins that tug of war, and it just reels that entire electron cloud in tighter and tighter. So there you have it. We've cracked the code. But this isn't just some neat party trick for your chemistry class. This whole idea of atomic size, as tiny and abstract as it seems, has huge consequences for the real world. I mean, it affects pretty much everything. I really like thinking about it this way. An atom's size is the foundation of its chemical personality. It's what determines how it's going to act, what other atoms it's going to interact with, and basically, what kind of trouble it's going to get into.
And that personality really does dictate everything. Things like chemical reactivity. A bigger atom's outer electrons are way out there, they're easier to grab, so it might be more reactive. It also influences how much energy it takes to steal one of its electrons, what kinds of bonds it can make, and even physical properties like melting and boiling points. The density of a material, that depends on atomic size too. It all comes back to the radius. Just to put a number on it, take carbon, the building block of life, right? Its covalent radius is about 95 picometers. A picometer, that's a trillionth of a meter. It's an unbelievably small number. But that specific size is the fundamental starting point for pretty much every molecule that makes you, me, and every living thing on this planet. It's just wild when you think about it.
So here's the big takeaway. The atomic radius isn't just some number you have to memorize. It's a key. It's one of the master keys that unlocks the secrets of the periodic table. Once you understand the why behind these patterns of size, you can start to predict how pretty much any element is going to behave. It's incredibly powerful. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. We've just decoded one of the periodic table's most important patterns. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? If an atom's size is a hidden code to its behavior, what other secrets is that table hiding, just waiting for us to figure out?